Just to come down to my level.
Let me see. Can you set this so it'll video?
There we go. I'm gonna take off my shoes. Oh, you are. She's gonna take off her shoes. We're all home folk here.
Sometimes I'm
Oh, just come on. Here, we love you.
All right, yes, I am taking off my shoes because I thought I'll either spend time adjusting the mic or I'll take off my shoes. So I'm really excited to be here. And I have to tell you that sometimes you're thrown into situations that you don't feel prepared for, and then you realize that you have been prepared for a long time. So I am going to do my best to minimize the tears. But Lisa called, I think 48 hours ago, and she's like, we got a little bit of gap of time. She's like, you got something like 15 minutes? And I'm like, yes. And then as it's moved, then I was more time, and then it was ending this morning or today. And so really my hope is, I get it, it's 2:10, you've been here all day. And I thought this is either going to bore them or this will blow them away. And so my hope is that it is obviously that second. So my desire, obviously, this afternoon is to share hope, for you to know that you are loved and that you are created for freedom beyond your imagination. So my name is Missy Hides. I'm an Executive Regional Vice President, thanks to Lori Huffman. That E has been a long time coming, and I'm so grateful for it. I am a wife to Sonny Hides. I am a mom of 4, and I am a daughter of a king. Amen. And in my 14 years with Arbonne, I've had many learning moments. I think any of us who have been in Arbonne more than a year or two feel like, gosh, we've had a lot. But when you say I've been with a company more than a decade, you kind of feel like it's a long time. I've had many learning moments, many wins, many failures, and many shifts. And so I want to share with you all today 2 shifts that have been transformational in my business. They've been transformational in my life because what I have learned along the way is that often when you are asked to walk through something, it's not just for you. It feels like it's just for you in that moment, and it can feel like, this is so hard and I'm so alone, and everybody else doesn't have to struggle. But your moments of growth, your shifts, are really to bring you to a point to be able to testify one day of what you've walked through, and that testifying creates hope for other people. So both of these shifts too, what I want you to know is that they didn't come without a cost. And I think I heard that, even as you guys have heard this morning, that anytime that there's been growth, it comes at a cost. And so these shifts have come at a cost. And so I have told people that some of these things that I've been asked to walk through have been the most awesome and awful, most painful seasons. But on the other side of them is incredible freedom. Just incredible freedom. So I want to take you all back to 2016. My business was in a place where we were just in a season of stagnation. I don't know if you have been there. I don't know if you are there. But I started my business. I promoted to region 2 years into Arbonne. And then I lost my region. And it took me out mentally. I had... I felt so much shame. Lisa kind of shared that, and I was embarrassed. I'm like, how do I tell somebody I can help you? When I was like, I had to sell my Mercedes, we couldn't afford it, and just really walked through hard things and decided that I was going to do the work to get my business back. We promoted to region, but then we really just kind of started to plane out again. And we were stagnating, and we were maintaining a region at best, and I was filled often with moments of panic. And my focus, I recognized, was on not losing my region again versus growing to nation. And so I want to ask you, what is your focus on in the month? Because for me, I would say, I'm going nation. But when I looked at my numbers, when I'd pull up the QV, it was always being gauged against how close am I to 40, how close am I to 35,000, so I can at least get enough to cover my my car payment. It certainly was not how close am I to 160. So wherever you are in your business and with your team, try to dig for yourself or dig with them. Like, what's the gauge? Is it the maintenance or is it next level? It was on the AIT trip of that year, and I remember having a very frank conversation with my husband. That was actually I remember just having a lot of conversations with him, and looking back, I'm like, gosh, I was a grumbler and a complainer. And we were walking to the lazy river to go on a ride, and I was just sharing with him, I was frustrated that I knew I didn't have the culture within my own personal business that I wanted, but I remember saying to him, like, well, what do you do? Just like create a culture? I was like, I don't even, like, how do you do that? Because I saw teams who had cultures I wanted. I knew my upline team had a culture, but I was like, my business doesn't have the culture that I wanted. And I didn't even know that what it really meant to create a culture. I just knew that when I thought about what did I want my culture to be defined as, it was best summed up in the word refreshing. That when people met me, then when they met us, that when they engaged in us, whether it was at a group presentation, at just a coffee appointment, when they became a part of us, that they would be refreshed. There's a verse that says, the generous will prosper and those who refresh will themselves be refreshed. So I knew that by refreshing others, the promise was I in turn would be refreshed. So the culture I had in my business, for those of you that don't know me, had almost always been one of striving to do more. Does anybody feel like if you had to sum up your business in 3 characteristics, or when you think of your Arbonne business, it's like, oh, I'm striving all the time. It was one of kind of like the strong survivor. I remember telling Sunny at times, like, well, she just couldn't hang. Like, if somebody didn't make it after 3 or 6 months, it was like, well, they're just kind of a weenie. They're not strong enough to do this business, It wasn't ever like, well, maybe am I doing something that people aren't staying around after 3 or 6 months? It felt very guilt-ridden. It wasn't that I was imposing guilt on people, but I was always in this sense of feeling like I wasn't doing enough. It was a lot of not enoughing. It was guarded. Like, one of the things that was just shown to me as I was processing through all this is that I used to love, or I did love the prospecting, the recruiting, the sponsoring part of my business. But then once somebody came into my business, I held them at an arm's distance. I didn't really want to build friendship with them. I didn't really want to invite them into my life. I didn't really want to let them get to know me. And I thought it was because I just wanted to keep business, and my family and my friends, my family and my friends. And what I realized was I didn't want to let them get to know me because I thought if they got to know me, they'd be disappointed. And so people stay in your Arbonne business because of relationship. But when you're keeping them at an arm's distance, there's not a lot of relationship, right? My business also didn't have a lot of joy to it. It appeared fun on the surface, but I knew it was not the culture that would foster long-term growth. So I want you to think about your own business. Is there something that you know you want or need that you don't currently have and you don't know how to get it? Or you don't know how to create it? It could be culture, it could be stability, it could be loyalty, it could be commitment, it could be a whole host of things. Everybody's business looks different. So I want you to write it down, whatever it is. There's one thing that comes to mind quickly for you. And write that down. My first shift came when I read the following quote. You will always reproduce the environment around you that you first cultivate within you. I'm going to reread that. You'll always reproduce the environment around you that you first cultivate within you. When I read that quote, I literally burst into tears because it was the first time I was able to really see that the culture of my team was simply an external reflection of what was going on internally in me. And that was painful, it was humbling, and it put the responsibility on me instead of out there. And I think it was Jill that was just talking about, like, there isn't a what's my team doing, it's a what's me doing. No, it's not proper English. And so it was just a reflection of the culture internally that I had, the mindset that I had, the identity that I had. What was showing up in my business was just a reflection of the inside. And the more I sat in it, the more I saw it in my marriage, the more I saw it in my parenting, in my family, in all of my relationships. And so we had to start there. John Maxwell says that people change when they hurt enough, they have to change. They learn enough, they want to change, or they receive enough that they are able to change. And I can tell you that it was all three for me. I was hurt enough, I was hurting enough, I was learning enough, and I had received enough to know to change. So the change that I was desiring externally had to start with me internally. And you all are going to have your own thing. You just wrote it down. That thing that you don't have, that you want, that you need, that you know is missing, starts with an internal work. And that, like Lisa was, kind of giving us some tough love earlier, I didn't really want to say that to you because that's hard to hear. It's hard to hear that when things are not going the way we want them to, we have to look here. We have to look at what's the identity I carry, what's the mentality I carry, what's in here, because that's spilling out. So everyone's going to have their own things that they need to work on, lies that they need to be set free from, and truth that they need to accept. For me, I had a poverty mentality in many aspects of my identity. I never actually grew up in physical poverty. It was actually the opposite for us. We were always very well provided for. But my attitudes and behaviors were characteristic of a survival mindset, and that can be seen in people who grow up in financially stable homes but experience lack in other areas of their lives. So when I would come to Arbonne, trainings, and I'd hear about like scarcity mindset, poverty mindset, I'm like, no, not me, thank you. Because I thought it was all really tied to like a financial component and didn't realize how it permeated through everything. Poverty mentality often is unable to receive from others. There's a defensiveness. There is a unwillingness to hear about virtual and go with it. There is an unwillingness to hear someone say, go do more. We want to be like, I'm doing the more, thank you. There's an unwillingness to receive. I definitely had an unwillingness to receive. I had such a ridiculous level of being unable to receive that when I sat around people who were being more successful than me in a shorter amount of time than me, it drove me bonkers. And I kind of didn't want to be around them. That was me. That was not them. They were going to teach me and share with me like how to shorten my learning curve, and I was like, I'm annoyed with you. Hello. They feel that their resources are limited. They believe that when someone else receives something, it takes away from some of the provision that could have been theirs. They surmise that someone else's blessing costs them. Do you ever feel that way, that when you see someone promoted, when you see somebody get something, whether it's in or out of Arbonne, there is a thing in you that goes, or is the response, awesome? And if it is not awesome, this is a thing to root out. Poverty mentality has an unsecure foundation, so you are always gauging and judging. You're always gauging and judging, and you're comparing, making sure you kind of know where you're standing with others, and you're always striving. There's just never a sense of like, I've done enough. It's always, I could have done more, I should have done more. This weightiness. Once my eyes were truly open to it, I went to work to be transformed from one with not only a poverty mentality, but I also had a poverty identity, to one whose identity is now firm and secure as one who walks with royalty. When it changed, when I changed, it changed the culture of my business. It changed the landscape of my business. It changed the attractiveness of my business. And I absolutely correlate what's happening in my business to this shift. People unconsciously, subconsciously, consciously did not want to be a part of the culture I was presenting. And it was a culture I didn't even know I was presenting to them. So that's shift number one. My second shift came this past July, and I wrestled a lot the last 48 hours with really not wanting to share this shift, but I feel like it's for someone here today. Through most of my adult life, I have had times where I have struggled with depression. I remember being newly married, being in my early 20s, and really recognizing that it was a thing for me, that it was just a thing that if I wasn't staying busy enough, if I didn't get enough sun, and we live in Kentucky, so it's like here it like is cloudy and rainy all the time. In the winter, I just would get, I would struggle with depression. When I would Google symptoms of mild depression, I would be like, oh, shoot. Like I would have most of them, or all of them. It was not constant, but over the years, I realized that it had a weight and a pressure, actually, that stayed right here. There was a thing, actually, like physically, that would reside right here. And for a lot of times, I wouldn't necessarily consciously know it, but it was there. It was full of anxiety, irritability, overwhelm. If I gave it any room to kind of open, I almost felt like it would overtake me. And I would work most days to push it down and manage it because I've been raised my whole life to value hard work, to be a hard worker, just fix it, kind of be a fixer. I found this was a year, I don't really know why, that I decided I was going to become a runner. And so I found that when I started to run at the beginning of this year, I would actually crave between 3 and 5 in the afternoon a run. And as I started to process through a lot of this, I found that it was because it was an hour of my day that I didn't have to manage those feelings. And for those short 60 minutes, I felt free. This past spring, I really started to struggle.
You got it, girl. Pinch your butt cheeks.
This past spring, I really started to struggle, and I couldn't figure out why, because everything, and I do not have time to share with you all of the everything, but as you can imagine in someone's life, married, children, home, business, everything in my life, everything was exponentially better than it had been in 10 years. Exponentially better. And yet that weight, that knot still remained. And I had always thought that when my business got better, when my marriage got better, when our finances got better, when I wasn't dealing with, 97 babies at one time, I didn't have 97 babies, that when all of those external things got better, that knot would go away. And it wasn't. The knot remained. I knew that medication was an option, and I was definitely willing to go there, but my first step was to go see a naturopathic to see if he could help me. I thought maybe it was just a change in my diet. I know we have 30 days. No one needs to give me any tips on that. But I also love sugar on 1,000 levels. So I thought, well, maybe I should just, change my diet. I thought, well, after post 4 kids, my hormones are probably needing some assistance. So I went to him. My appointment went well. He gave me some supplements, and as we talked, we ended our time, and he said that he felt that there was a spiritual component to the knot that was residing on my chest. and that I should have the elders of my church pray for me. So that Sunday after service, I went down and shared with one of them what I was wanting prayer for. And as we went to pray, he looked at me and said, I'm hearing this is not a spirit of depression. This is actually a bondage to fear of success. When he said that, it felt like something deep in my spirit physically came out of my throat, jumped out of my mouth, and said, like grabbed a hold of that he had said and said, yes, yes. Instantly, that knot was gone. Instantly. I can tell you that I would have never in 1,000 years, I would have bet you $1,000 that I was not someone who was afraid of success. Come on. Who? Really afraid of success? Like, I was like, give me the money. Give me the money. Give me the things. Give me the influence. Like, I'm not afraid of success. Like, I didn't really ever understand, like, the fears of failure, fears of success, things like that. I would have never seen that. I thought it was so ridiculous. So when I started to process this, because it's an instant, and then it's a learn to walk this out. It's an instant and a learn to walk this out. Like, in this moment, you could be set free from whatever fear you currently have that has bondage over you, but then you have to learn to walk it out. And it's learning to be what's new, a new you, a new version of you. So I knew that, and I needed to process it, and I wanted to know why. Where was this fear coming from? From my earliest memories, I have been favored. I remember being a toddler and being a favorite to family members, to friends, getting extra gifts. I just remember always having this thing. Others would single me out, like lots of weird stories. Go to events and like bring all the kids up on stage and all the kids go back except for me, and then they sing me a special song. Or they, things like that happened all the time. And as a kid, there were definitely perks to it. For sure, you feel special in the moment. But really, there was an overarching pressure to being favored that was very uncomfortable for me, and I didn't want the favor. I didn't want to be singled out. I didn't want to be a favorite. Throughout my growing up years and early into my childhood, there were multiple instances where I would have people either come up and share a compliment with me or say something to me, and it kind of went along the lines of, you're so great, but you make me feel bad about myself. You're so confident, you intimidate me. You're such a great mom, I can never do what you do. Like, it was always this, like, you're great, but you make me feel bad. So I started to believe a lie very early in my life, that the very essence of who I was, because I am gifted and I was favored, not only caused me to be uninvited and kept at a distance, but also that it hurt others. So if I increased my success, the loneliness, the isolation that I often felt, and it's interesting for people, I think sometimes when I share this part of my story, when I share that a lot of times I'm an uninvited person. I'm not a person included in groups. I'm not a person when people gather that I am invited. Part of that has been on me for a long time, because part of my survival mindset was that I didn't share struggles. I didn't share hard things. I didn't share things I was walking through. So the perception was I don't struggle. So people that are struggling don't want to invite the person who seems that they're not struggling, right? So there was just a lie that I had believed that if my success increased, if I just did anything more than I was doing right now, the loneliness would increase, the isolation would increase and become more frequent, and that the hurt that I was causing others would become deeper for those that I was already feeling I had hurt, or it would impact more people. So I was actually, deep down, once I processed through all this, afraid to become a national vice president. The fear of success was rooted in that, which when you break it down is really rooted in people pleasing. Because I was more concerned about trying to keep people happy or whatever than I was in pursuing the things I had been called to pursue. But I'm here to tell you, and I'm here to give you hope, that I no longer believe that lie. I'm no longer bound to that fear. It has changed again everything for me. And I'm daily learning to walk in the giftings and the favor that are on my life, that I need to be okay with that are on my life, that I need to confidently stand in that they are on my life. Leadership will be lonely at times. Everyone in here, you've heard this all day long. You're already a leader. You're raising up leaders. And to think that you're going to go through this process and not have seasons and moments in your business, in your friendships, in your family, where you will not be called to stand alone is foolish. You're going to be called to stand alone. Or you might be put in a situation where you're alone for lots of reasons. Walking in your greatness will set you apart. You may be misunderstood, wrongly accused, or uninvited moving forward. Confidence will always look like arrogance to the insecure. But I, like all of us in this room, have been called to shine brightly, to shine unapologetically. A little note on this. I realized for a long time that I couldn't really accept someone's compliments of me. I was very dismissive of them. If someone would compliment me on my parenting, if they would compliment me on my business, if they would compliment me when I speak, I was very dismissive in, anybody can do this. Oh, girl. You know, I downplayed it because I didn't want in any way to stand in the giftings. Because I believed the lie that if I stood and said, yeah, I am a great parent. I work really hard at it. We're really committed to it. We do a lot of crazy things that other people are unwilling to do. And because of it, it's resulted in great parenting. I've been unwilling to stand in that, afraid that it's going to hurt other people, which is just that people pleasing. So we have to stand and shine brightly, unapologetically, confidently, and boldly. When you stand and when you shine, people will either bend to you or they will bend away from you. And neither of those are your concern. That is who you have been designed to be. You have been designed this way, not for your own glory, but to glorify the one who created you and to be a light to those around you who need your shine.